Okay, I would like to introduce Steph Thompson. Steph is a real spark plug. She's full of energy. She's got great ideas. Steph is also a registered kinesiologist and a competitive curler. So she brings a wealth of information with her, and it's very pertinent information. So Steph, I'm going to pass the presenter role to you. Oh, wait, and you can take it away as soon as I find you. Okay.
There we go. Let me just now find the presentation. Oh. Here we go. Got it. All right. Do we see a slideshow there?
I do, so I'm thinking everybody.
We don't have any audio anymore, so perfect. Okay. Well, thank you, Andrea, for the introduction, and thank you to everyone for showing up today. I love talking about fitness and curling, so I hope that you learn something new and take something from this. Special thank you to those that did email me with some requests for topics to cover. From them, there was a lot of double questions asked, and those were the pieces that I really wanted to focus on. And I also wanted to take more of like an aerial view and then come at it from a little bit more specific stance, so that we're making sure that we're taking the most use out of the next 4 to 6 months, however long our off season is going to be. Okay, and then how I'd like to do this is we do have the chat box. So if you have a question and it's immediate, like if you're like, I need to ask this right now, put it in the chat box. Hopefully I see it. Hopefully we can get to it. But I will be doing questions and answers at the end. So typically what happens is like I answer the person's questions as we go. And I didn't write out like a layout of how we're going to go through today. So you're just going to have to roll with me and follow along as we go. Okay. Now, how do I go next? There we go. So real quick, just a disclaimer that all of this is a guide. Okay, so use your best judgment and seek out assistance from a regulated health professional if there's any questions or concerns that you need specific to you. Okay, next. I hear something in the background.
A TV or something.
Somebody who's not on mute. Can I see you? Oh, yeah. I think we should just mute everyone. I think that's fine.
Yeah, I will do. I'll do that right now.
Perfect. Love it. Okay. Or just go off of mute if you have to ask a question. That's fine. So I want to do a quick exercise to start, and that's just going to bring us, this is mostly for me, let's be serious. We're going to bring ourselves into the moment so that whatever happened before this and whatever is going to happen after, we can come right into the moment and really take advantage of the next hour. So on your own, if you're taking notes, what I want you to do is just take a couple of deep breaths. So give yourself time to breathe 3 times in your nose, into your belly, nice and slow exhale, and then identify an emotion you might be feeling and an intent for today. So something that you want to get out of today. And it could be specific, it could be broad. Just want you to have your own little intent opposed to showing up and just taking in info and then not doing anything with it. So I'm just going to give you a moment. I'm going to take a breath and then we'll get going. Okay. So real quick about me, I am a competitive curler in Ontario, and I started playing curling when my brother, I started curling really young, but I didn't like it because I didn't weigh as much as the rock, so nobody wanted to curl with me because I couldn't get the rock over the log line. But then I took it back up right before high school so that I could try to be better than my brother, which is says a lot about me because I am very competitively driven. And then through my schooling, I went to school for kinesiology. I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to help people. And throughout my undergrad, I just realized that as I was learning the things in kinesiology that there wasn't a lot of this info out there for curlers. So I started taking the information, and every time I learned a new thing about physiology, anatomy, biomechanics, sports psych, I started to apply it to curling specifically. So it was a way for me to learn because I understood curling so well, and it really helped me when I was coaching people and when later I started my own personal training, online coaching business. So lots of mistakes have been made since I started training myself, my team, other teams, and what I'm hoping is that I can give you this kind of bird's eye view of the things that you should be focusing on as an athlete or as a coach when you're putting together your off-season training program, and even within that whole season plan. So we're looking at how to get the most out of the time. We're basically saying, okay, we're not on the ice for 4 to 10 hours a week now, so now I have 4 to 10 hours to focus on the off ice, the warm side of the glass. Okay, so oh, I have to hit next on this guy. Oh, so sorry. Quick. So one of my favorite quotes has to do with effort. I care most about how much effort my athletes and my clients put in, because when you put the effort in, you are going to find some growth in some way. So the lesson for today is that I can give you the info, but you need to do the work. And the 3 things that we're going to go over today are, what are the demands of the sport? So when we're looking at curling, what are the demands of the sport? And then we're going to look at ways to improve the performance gap off the ice, and then what things you have to consider when you're putting together some sort of program or plan to help get you from point A, where you are today, and point B, where you want to be in 4 months, 8 months, a year, etc. Okay? So this is the educational piece. I coach teams and individuals throughout the whole season with a focus on off-season prep. And full disclosure, there is a DIY program template that I've put together so that the general curler can take this template and put together their own program. But I will be sending out with the recording, I'll be sending out the PowerPoint, and it's going to have links to anything that we talked about. So if I talk about an exercise, I'll link that exercise in there. If I talk, you'll see in the slides that if I talk about the phasing of the off season, you're going to get that. So these are like all the ingredients, and if you want the full recipe, then that'll be available at the end. Okay, so what I have found is that at the end of the day, whether your goal is strength, balance, endurance, focus, longevity as an athlete, movement efficiency, at the end of the day, the goal of your curling specific training is so that you can experience less pain, gain more strength, gain more fitness, so that you can play and practice more. And because you can play and practice more, that alone means that you can perform better and likely enjoy your time on the ice longer. So they all kind of go hand in hand. At the end of the day, everybody wants their performance to improve, and they want to curl for as long as possible. So not necessarily longevity just in the season, but also in the life of a curler. Okay? So to do this, we look at what are the specific athletic demands of curling. And that's very sciencey. So a lot of coaches can look at it. What does a curler need to be able to do? What are the movement patterns, the energy systems that the curler needs to use and be really good at? What positions do they need to own in order to be a really good curler and maximize their time on the ice? So from there, what exercises off ice will support on ice success? Whoop, somebody just asked to be presenter. Ignore that.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And then before we move on, so we're looking primarily at off-ice, I call it off-ice season because there's no off-season, you're always on. But we're looking at off-season versus in-season. Off-season is when you get to gather all that strength and cardio and the team building and the mental toughness, so that when you hit the in-season, the goal is maintenance. Because when you hit in-season, we're on the ice, and our focus is now shifting back to the ice, and we're spending more time on our technique and our strategy and our team dynamics and our sweeping and all those other things. So we're setting the stage now in the off-season so that we can be as strong and mobile as an athlete, so that when we step on the ice and I need to slightly turn my heel out or heel in, or I need to push myself into a different position while I'm sweeping, I have the strength and the ability to hold that position. Okay, I was about to say, does that make sense? But nobody is answering me.
It makes sense, Steph. It makes sense.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so, oops. what I've done is I've looked at delivery and I've looked at sweeping. And over the past, so I've been coaching curlers in the off season and throughout the whole season since 2014 now. So this is year, I can't do math, 6th year of seeing athletes on the ice and in the gym and looking at some of the things that they're missing. So how can we put together a program that they're filling in all their gaps? And what I've noticed is that things such as weight control, okay, so having that ability to throw a backline weight or a tight guard, even control weight to peel, a lot of the struggle is that balance. So being able to have a nice balanced, solid delivery so you can have the mental and physical focus on that kick. Hitting the broom, so line of delivery. A lot of people I find if their balance is off, that messes up their timing. So chicken or the egg there. Their timing's off as well, and they might have a drift or they don't hit the broom. Okay, so that comes down to balance as well. Generating power is a big one. I know for myself, I'm not a humongous human being, and since since I started dating Matt in 2011, I've been able to throw. I used to be able to throw control weight comfortably. Now I can throw like up, peel, parking lot comfortably. And the big difference, yes, is strength, but it's mostly that I've been able to find balance in my delivery. And I found that in the off, on the warm side of the glass, with hip stability, with the strength and the mobility around the hips. Okay, so weight control, hitting the broom, generating power, and then consistency and technique. If your athlete their foot can't get into a good spot, if their hips are dropping, if they can't be consistent, they don't have that ability to find balance, that's going to affect their performance. So what I've done is I've noticed that these things, such as hitting weight control, hitting the broom, generating power, and consistency and technique, all stem from a lack of balance. Okay, and there's obviously 900 ways that this could be affected, but on one hand, we see balance being an issue. And why is balance an issue? I see there's an imbalance in people's mobility and their stability. Okay. Also, there's strength in both the big and small muscles, so that's going to come back to stability, as well as body awareness. So I'm looking at the things that you can control off the ice, because the off season is all about learning how to own the position that you're in. So real quick, there is a difference between mobility and flexibility. Okay, so flexibility, people think I need to be lower to the ice. Okay, they've got this idea that their body has to be as low to the ice as possible. They want their chin hairs touching the ice. I don't know why that's okay. Everybody's a little bit different, right? Some people will go lower and some people won't. So what I care more about is not necessarily the flexibility, which is the length that a muscle can have. I care more about the mobility, which is the range of motion at a joint. So how much range of motion do you have at your hip so you can externally rotate it, open it up to the side? How much range of motion do you have so you can extend that foot behind you? It does play in with flexibility, but what's happening when our body's tight is that we don't have the strength to own that position. So, and I'm going to get to this in a couple slides. We're going to talk about what exercises do you need to do to help improve the mobility and stability. So these are the things you can do off the ice so that when you step back on the ice, you have that movement capacity and are more likely to be able to manage your balance a little bit better. Okay, so mobility, range of motion at the joint, flexibility is the length of the muscle. I like to focus on mobility more than flexibility. And they do go hand in hand, but mobility is going to be more, it's more of an athletic piece to measure. Okay, now stability comes in. Our joints need to be mobile, but they also need to be stable. So what happens is we have at the hip, if we don't have a mobile hip and our knee needs to, our leg needs to open up to the side, we're going to take that mobility and bring it into the knee. And the knee is supposed to be stable. So now we've just taken the mobility away from the hip. The knee is doing what the hip is supposed to do. Oop. Allow. Okay, and therefore we have knee pain. So a lot of the time the balance and that instability comes from having parts of the body doing what they're not supposed to be doing. And then the last thing is body awareness. At the very least, if somebody starts doing some form of training, as throughout the next 4 to 6 months, they have a new understanding of what their body can do. So when you get them on the ice and get them into practice and ask them to try new things, they're going to have a better understanding of what their body is. Okay, and when we talk about age groups and what we need to, how we need to focus on different age groups when we're training, at the very, very beginning, we need to make sure we have a good base of athletic literacy. So an understanding of how to move and how to move your own body in space. Okay? So the topic popped up a couple of times that when I asked what we should talk about, and that was standardized testing and things that I should test and what should I test my U15 and my senior and my et cetera on. What I want to do here is actually talk about the demands of the sport, and I said we're going to get to the exercises. I'm just being a tease. So we're assessing through movement. If someone can't get into the delivery position, we need to understand what they should be able to do in order to be a good curler, and look at what that gap is and use the off ice, the warm side of the glass, to kind of fill in that gap. The assessments that you do, whatever you decide to do, will expose opportunities for you to focus on in the off season. That's what the point of testing is for me. Standardized testing is fantastic because you can get good metrics from that. But if you don't have the resources, just simply understanding, figuring out what kind of things does my athlete need to do and what are they not good at, and then using that as a baseline so that you can plan your off season and make them a little bit better at those movement qualities that you need to be a good curler. Okay, just taking some water. The next piece, so we've seen this before, and I'm going to be honest, I forgot if it was timing or grips to turn, whatever. You know, you understand what I'm getting at. We've got a foundation. If your setup and balance are not good, likely your follow through is going to suffer. Okay, so we use this pyramid as a template to help troubleshoot an athlete's delivery, and setup and balance are the very, very foundation. So if I were to go back a couple slides, I don't know how to do that. We talked about how setup and balance can affect line of delivery, generating power, weight control, comfort in the slide, all those things. So if we're not setting up and getting a good balance, we're missing a huge part. And I look at when I'm looking at my athletes, I don't need to see them throwing a game. I just need to see them in the hack. How did they get into the hack, and how did they throw that rock for me to go, performance gaps, mobility here, stability here, shifting the weight, twisting the body, like things aren't tight in the right spot. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to go through the curling delivery and look at the key muscles that are used, okay? Because knowing the muscles that are important, it's not the muscles per se that is important, but the motions. So one of the biggest mistakes I made when I first started training, and it was more because I didn't know any better, was I trained more like a bodybuilder, okay? The number of people that come to me and they're like, oh, my current training plan is back, chest, legs, calves, core, but they're not training the motions. So yes, at the end of the day, something's better than nothing. They're going to get stronger because their muscles are getting stronger, but they're missing out on mastering the motions and the movements that you need in curling. So that's what we're going to go through today. And what I've done, which is actually quite simple. So when you look at what you need to do in curling, here I'm going to switch to video while I'm talking here, what's going on? Okay. What I do is I look at the positions and then I look at the exercises and say, what exercises can I do that are going to mimic this positioning? Okay. Can everybody, Andrea, can you see me?
Yes. Yep. We
got
you.
So real simple, because the next slide is what is going to be the exercises that you're going to do in this. Let me see if I can pull up both actually. Check. Is that cool or is that too messy? Nope. Hold on. What happened?
Well, I can see you and about 2/3 of you and the whole slide.
Yeah. Sorry, things are in the wrong order. I want to do, okay, hold on. What? Sweeping. Exercises. What exercises? Here we go. Oh, that's because I didn't, okay, you don't need to see that. Sorry about that. Hello, everybody. Okay, so when you're doing the basic curling delivery, and I know that there's somebody listening with who works with wheelchair athletes, so you're just gonna do the same thing. Get into the position. I'm gonna be headless because I'm apparently very tall. Get into the position. What positions do they need? What muscles do they need? Okay, when I look at athletes to make them the most efficient, we want them to be using the biggest muscles in the body. So the lats, the glutes, and the hamstrings and quads. We want to make sure that we're utilizing those. Okay, so when we get into our curling delivery, the big thing that I've noticed is that, and if you're listening, you feel free to stand up and do this with me. If I stand up and get into the hack, knees first, my quads activate. So if I get down into the hack, this muscle is the one that's primarily on, okay? But if I get into the hack, hips first, and then bend my knees, exact same position, I just got in there in a different position, I'm gonna feel more stability in my glutes and my hamstrings as well as the quads. So simply having people move hips first versus knees first is going to solve a lot of knee issues, okay? And it's also going to recruit more muscle. So when we're training, if I want to train this hip back motion, I need to do exercises that look like the hip back motion, okay? So we're going to get to that in a second. So number one, we want hips back and a bend in the knees. That's going to protect their knees. It's going to activate more muscles. This will help people when they're A, managing injuries, and B, if they struggle to generate power. Because if I go down here, these muscles are on, I'm not recruiting all of the potential muscles, so I'm missing out on so much potential. Okay, whereas if I get my hips back, these guys are part of the party. Now, stability is also coming from all of the lower body, not just the quads in this position, which means I'm going to be able to focus on the last part of that kinetic chain, which is the kickoff. Okay, my calves, my toes. So when we're looking at what muscles we need to train, we've got some sort of squat hinge motion. Okay, but then our upper body is not a limp noodle. Okay, we're not hanging out here. We're not nice and tight in here. We want nice posture. We want our chest up. I'm talking general, of course, okay, athlete to athlete, focus to focus. If you want to get down there, that's fine with you. Okay, this means I need to work on my lat muscles. And most people don't know where their lats are, so I don't have a slide, but Google the lat muscles. They go all the way down here. Okay, so there's my whole back. And they also attach on the back of this arm. So when I bring this arm into my body, a big muscle called the latissimus dorsi is working. So if I were to keep my posture up and slightly arch my upper back and squeeze my money into my armpits, so I imagine putting money into my armpits, just activated a huge stabilizer in the upper body. When we're trying to develop balance and focus, we want tension up there, and we want it to come from the back muscles. Okay, when it comes from the front muscles, we get all rounded forward, and that's going to cause a whack kind of problem from the low back. Okay, so now we need some sort of hinge and squat. We need something to work the lats. Okay, and we also need something in our delivery position. So just as the basic position to hold is a lunge. Okay, so I have people do not lunges, but split squats. And split squats, so lunges is when we shift our weight forward into the front knee. Okay, they're not bad. The weight goes forward. That's totally fine. But what I want is to make the hips feel stable. So when we work on the split squat, which is a stationary lunge, and we're going straight up, straight down, we get the opportunity to work on this glute muscle on the back. Okay, so if you're doing this with me, you want your feet hip distance apart. Okay, so hip distance, big step. Okay, we're going to bend and straighten. Big clench of the butt up at the top. Okay, so it's a bend and straighten. That exercise alone, if you struggle to get down, shows that you don't have flexibility, which could be limiting your range of motion at your hip, and making it hard for you to get that full hip extension. Okay, and it can also show that you don't have the stability at the hips to control the pelvis. Okay? The next piece I want to talk about is mobility. So there's lots of ways to skin the cat with curling delivery, but a lot of people struggle to open up this hip. That is a hip range of motion. That's external rotation. Okay? Now, our joints want to feel stable and strong. Okay? They don't want to feel If they feel unstable, they're going to find tightness in places and muscle compensation is going to happen. Okay, so the other piece I have people pay attention to when they go up and down in their split squat, are we able to keep our hips level? And are we able to activate this back glute muscle? When I'm stabilizing my hip, I want this glute to be partially turned on so the hip feels stable so our low back doesn't hurt. Okay, so some of the exercises I've linked help with hip mobility as well. And then the very last piece is the kinetic chain. So kinetic chain is working from the feet all the way up. When we're running or walking, we're making sure that the last piece is that toe off position.
So good. I got it, Steph. Keep going.
The last piece is that I want is that toe off position. Okay, so we need some sort of calf raise in our program for that toe off. And a lot of the calf raises that we do, right, calf raises, up and down, off the step, what have you, say if we're doing that toe off and we're gaining strength in this muscle, if we can build more strength and understanding of how much force we need to push to that toe, we're going to be able to have a better understanding of how to work, how to generate different levels of power. Okay? This Mac can't connect. That's too bad. There we go. Okay? Yeah, the last piece, secret, you want to protect your knee, don't buy a knee saver, okay? Build bigger calves, because then it creates a nice little pillow for your hamstring to land on. It basically works as a knee saver. You know those knee savers, people put those in there? Build bigger calves, make pillowy calves. Okay, so we're going to go through that again, and we're going to talk about, so I mentioned that I was going to put in these slides for you to take home that Andrea will send out later. I'm going to link all of these exercises, okay? I'm giving you the ingredients to put together with the program. Okay, so what we've got suitcase squats. So, and we're at home. Okay, we don't have a lot of equipment. Okay? We're at home, we don't have a lot of equipment. Let's say we have soup cans, let's say we have grams of dumbbells, okay? A suitcase squat. So let's first talk, we've got squats and we've got deadlifts, okay? A squat is a bend at the ankle, knee, and hip, okay? I typically hold the weight up top. It depends on the variation. A deadlift is a hinge at the hip. Neither of these exercises transfer directly to curling. Okay, they don't look exactly, we don't kick out of the half up, and we don't hinge to create power. But we do what's called a suitcase deadlift. Okay, so we bend our hips back, we bend our knees, and we squat down. This is what I look like before I throw my rock. Okay, so if we can train that position, we train the ability to bring the hips back, to gain strength in these guys, and learn how to stand up, which is going to help us when we go to kick out of the half. Okay, suitcase squat number 1. You can do it with bands. There are even some very ingenious isometric ways to practice your suitcase squat with towels, but I don't have a towel or I demo it. Okay, suitcase squats, split squats. We talked about split squats. Okay, step ups. So then we're getting to a point where, more specifically, I need to be able to work on this extension and the ability for me to stabilize the hip while I flex at the hip and flex at the knee. Okay, and I did not bring my step up. Oopsies. So let's say this is a giant step up. Okay, learning how to step through. So this foot bends, straighten, come up. What we're looking for is something called triple extension. A bend at the ankle, knee, and hip, and an extension, a straightening at the ankle, knee, and hip. Okay, so exercises that provide that extension, very beneficial. Okay? This is just the strength piece, and I'm going to walk you through why I think the strength piece is so important to focus on first in a bit. Long jump. Okay, I'm going to talk about it now. When we are kicking out of the hack, if I want more power, I need to put more force into the hack, and I need to do that faster. Okay, so the big mistake people make when they're creating their off-season program, I did it too, is right now they're like, power exercises, yeah! But if you don't increase your strength, you're not going to get any more powerful. We're looking to put more force into the hack so that we can push our body and the rock further and faster. Okay, so you need to spend time building that strength before you do the power stuff. Let's say you start tomorrow or Monday, you've got 4 months until September. Plenty of time to phase your programming so you focus on strength and then that newfound strength with the power. Okay, so long jump. The thing that I've been paying attention to with long jump is not necessarily how far you can jump, although very cool, but can your athlete stick the landing? Okay, if I do a long jump and I can't stick the landing, I'm decelerating into that squat. Okay, I'm decelerating when I land. When we throw a rock and I slide out into my delivery, I'm decelerating into my knee. So a couple of years ago, I hurt my hammies, and then a couple of years later, I hurt my fascia around my knee. I put into a long jump. If I did a long jump, it hurt my knee. That tells me that your athletes or myself cannot absorb, you're not absorbing, you're generating energy to absorb the energy. Okay, so in terms of a knee protection, you've got 2 things. Can your athletes master the hip stack? Okay, and can they jump and land and absorb the energy? Okay, if they over time can jump, they can't jump further, but they can absorb the landing better, your athlete's going to be better off heading into the season. Okay, cow phrases, I talked about creating a nice pillow on the back of your calf to protect the knee. It also helps with the toe off, okay, that control. Hip stability work, we've actually got 3 glute muscles, okay, butt muscles, peaches, whatever you want to call them. You've got the big glute max, okay, that's got to help you kick out of the hack, okay, lots of power in that glute max. It's the biggest muscle in the human body. Okay, then we've got glute, I'm going to mix them up, knees, apologies if I mix it up, the second glute muscle, a little smaller on the side, put your hand on your hip, on the side of your butt, and press out to the side, you'll feel that muscle, okay? It's also responsible for externally rotating the femur. So if you're an athlete struggle to open up your hip, it could be because this muscle is not there to stabilize the hip. The third glute muscle, very important to protect your back and your knees, is the stabilizer of the pelvis. It's called your glute min. Okay? How many of your athletes stand like this? Don't let them do it. First of all, it looks unprofessional. Think of a few professional ones on TV who do this. Second of all, this muscle, which stabilizes your pelvis, is on stretch. So now, if you're always sagging into that hip, what's likely happening, first of all, if they start to run, they're going to have a little bit of a shake to them, and they're this muscle right here is going to hurt. Okay, this muscle needs to be strong. It can't be lengthened. Now, if I do that split squat and that muscle fails me on this side, my hip sag. Okay, so if we go back to your athletes trying to get lower to the ice, where they don't have the stabilizers, and where they're drifting, what might be happening is they're throwing their rock like this. Their hip level just drops. Okay, they're not using a key stabilizer in the hip to stabilize their pelvis. Okay, so I've got exercises, I'm going to link them in there in the video on how to work on the glute max, okay, the glute med, and the glute min. This is gold. This is gold for protecting your athletes and yourself. Okay, if you've ever been to rehab for your muscles, sorry, not other kinds of rehab, if you have, I'm not going to get very far without a really awkward moment. You need, oh God, what was I getting at? Rehab for an injury, these exercises are what they should be giving you. So why not do them beforehand to prevent an injury? It's called prehab. Okay, and that's what a registered kin can do for you. That's what a really good coach, I know somebody asked, like, what kind of things does a coach need to understand? They need to understand the demands of the sport and the common injuries and why those common injuries are happening. Okay, knee pain, I'm on a kick. Knee pain is not normal. Not normal. It's common, but it's not normal. Okay, so let's see here. I think I hit everything, and I need to make sure I link all those. Okay, so how do I get into the presentation? Because we're going to talk about sweeping. Cool. So what do we got? Delivery. Sweeping. Okay. Common struggles when we're sweeping. So I put at the bottom the ability to rebound. That's more the cardio-esque side of sweeping. So we are going to talk about cardio, but not in this slide. I just put it there so that people didn't go, well, cardio is a big point in sweeping. We need to make sure we're focusing on just a couple things here. So I've noticed that those athletes that struggle to get into any position, to upgrade their positioning, to upgrade their technique, whether it's their footwork, their back flat, their feet out, etc. Okay, I've noticed that typically comes from not being able to own the position of sweeping. So what I'm really loving about the conversations I've been having this off season and into the past few seasons, but mostly this season, is if my athletes can't own the position I want them to be in, what strength, mobility, etc. are they lacking? Because you can put them into those positions, but unless they can own it, and by owning it I mean, like, can they hold it and are they comfortable in it? Unless they own it, they're setting themselves up for injury. There's a competitive curler who went live a couple weeks ago talking about their shoulder bursitis. I could have told you 2 years ago, based on the way that person was sweeping, although effective, was going to hurt their shoulder because they weren't using the big lat muscles. They were getting up into the neck into the shoulder. Okay, so there's on one end, we've got, yes, this perfect technique, but we also have to look at the athlete. We want them to be hardcore athletes for a really long time. We don't want them wasting time with injuries. So how can we make sure we're positioning ourselves well that way? So positioning and technique, that was a bit of a rant. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Footwork.
It's all good, Steph. It's all good.
What's that?
It's all good.
Footwork, pain, if you've got any pain, this is the same for delivery, but if you've got pain in your shoulders, your wrists, and your low back, like the number of curlers I see out there with arm sleeves on and tape, and they've got the stupid thumper thing, ask me how I feel about it, the thumper thing on the muscles, like these things are coming from a lack of comfort in the position, and I struggled with finding a word that was just as good as balance, so it's comfort/strength. Okay, so I see these curlers being put into this new position to try to sweep, or they've over time they don't own the position, so they start to compensate it, and they're either not good at it or they're exposing themselves to injury and it's because they don't have the strength, the upper body strength. If your athlete cannot do 10 consecutive push-ups from the ground properly, they likely cannot do the sweeping position properly. Okay, and that is based on clearly observation. So all you that love your stats, I'm sorry I don't have that fully statistized, but I'm pretty sure if you look at the athletes that were doing a couple weeks ago live push-up competitions, the real good sweepers, their push-ups will bomb. And the ones that weren't good sweepers weren't even showing off their push-ups. Okay, so comfort and strength. This also comes back to stability and mobility. Can you get the right muscles to do and the joints to do what they're supposed to do? Okay? Strength in both the big and small muscles. A lot of the time if we have wrist or low back pain in sweeping, it's because the big muscles aren't doing their job and the small muscles are trying to do the job of the big muscles. Hence that shoulder bursitis, that person's shoulder was, their traps were probably taking over opposed to actually using the big lat muscles. Okay, and then number one, I find if people aren't used to being in a position such as the push-up or a pull-up and understanding how to activate through the whole body, not just using their arms, they don't have that body awareness. Okay, so simple things like chin-ups and rows, those are going to help build body awareness, push-ups as well, and then of course the ability to rebound is that stamina, which we'll talk about. Okay, comfort comes from having the strength and owning the position. That's kind of what I'm getting at there. So overall strength, especially upper body strength, no matter what it is going to help you when you're trying to get into that proper sweeping position. Okay, proper air quote, because I don't know if they know. So this is my little plan. Okay, so similar to how we look at the delivery, we want to prioritize a solid foundation. And another big mistake that I had is I'm like, I'm going to nail the positioning and technique of sweeping. I'm going to be so good. I can be on both sides. It can be close. It can be awesome. But if your smart sweeping sucks, it's not smart sweeping anymore. So we want to make sure that, yes, we're coaching our athletes and make sure if they are not an optimal sweeper in terms of technique and positioning, and maybe they don't have the fitness, but they're really smart, that's a valuable asset to their game. Right? So I just want to make sure that we're paying attention to that as well. And then I put strength, mobility, and cardiovascular fitness in the middle, because if you don't own that position, it's very hard to force your athlete into a position and make them do a technique that they don't have the body awareness or strength or control to do, right? Off-ice work is very, very important, in my opinion, on helping those athletes own that position and the technique, okay? And again, simple things like push-ups, pull-ups, rows, those things they're not the exact same, but they transfer to curling in terms of the movements that we have to do. Okay? Smart sweeping, if anybody doesn't know what that is, I'm sure there's a technical definition. Essentially, it's, can you judge a rock? Do you understand the ice, the paths, changing environments? Can you read the thrower? Communication with all players, timing, comparison across shots, paths, and players. So what I'm getting at is it's the same as if you don't have balance, it's really hard to have a really good follow through, right? It's really hard to have a really good grip, turn, release if your balance is off because you're likely leaning on the rock, okay? And then it's the same if you don't have the strength, mobility, it's really hard to get in that position. So we're going to talk about that next. And we're going to go back on video. Get to see my lovely mug. How did I do that?
Just pull up photo booth. Yeah, there you go.
Again, this is not my computer. That's why. Matt was looking at Google Earth. I have no idea.
Maybe he wants to know where Kenora was.
Got it.
There we go.
Okay, so the whole thing that I'm trying to get across today is that there are some things that you can control off the ice. And let's say that our off-ice season ends up a lot longer than it was supposed to. We have so much opportunity to get better at these things. So I linked in the bottom of this slide. You'll see it when I pull it back up, and you'll get it. I wrote an article on dryland sweeping. So I have like a slippery pad that I really should have out here, and something that goes on my broom so I can practice the positioning off the ice. And I know that there's footwork trainers and other fancy things out there, so we can take advantage of being off the ice still. So what am I getting at? Okay, in terms of protecting your athletes, I'm a headless human being. Can I make this bigger? Nope, that didn't do anything. I have to change the angle. Fine, I'm headless. You don't need to see my head. In terms of, what was I getting at? Oh yeah, protecting your athletes. Okay, so I know that there's a presentation going around, and I'm not sure who did it, because I don't remember, I'm so sorry. And they were talking about positioning your athletes on the ice. Part of smart sweeping is making sure that your two athletes that are sweeping are in an optimal position so both their broom heads are really close. So there's that. We need one person likely open and one person closed. I'm not going to get into it. But let's say that your athlete doesn't right now have the strength, have the mobility to be in that closed position. Okay, so their footwork is forward. Now my body's twisted. Okay, so I'm switching into how do I prevent injuries right now. If they don't have the footwork yet, they shouldn't be forcing closed because they're twisting their body and they're exposing themselves to so many injuries. Okay, so that's number one. If you can get that fancy footwork to the side, closed is available to you. And there are different techniques, but essentially what I see when people are sweeping, and if they don't own the position, is that we're trying to get your back flat and your weight over top of the broom head. Yada, yada, yada. Very crude. I'm not teaching a sweeping seminar. And get your feet out from underneath your hip line. Okay? If I do not have the upper body and core strength, what happens is this. This is not an athletic position, let me tell you. Then the arm's going like this and the body's going like this, trying to move the broom head as quickly as possible. Okay, you want to set yourself up for injury, get your friggin' broom out of your armpit. Okay, so when we're sweeping, we need to be in a position that looks very similar to a push-up. Okay, we need to have that broom out of our armpit so that when I do an exercise called a row, it looks very similar. I'm training the same motion. I do not do rows like this. I do rows back. Okay, and this is in the videos I'm going to link, how to do a proper row. So we're using our lat muscles. So big muscles at the back are very important. So the positioning we're in, preventing injuries, getting it out of your armpits, get your shoulders away from your ears. And that way when I'm sleeping, I get to recreate that rowing motion on this side. Okay? So we've got rowing, pull-ups, chin-ups, I forget which one's which. Okay, so I'm hanging off the bar or a tree because we don't have anywhere to be in any gyms here. Palms wide are great because they activate your lats, but I don't sweep like this. Okay? I sweep like this. So I want you to do with your athletes, I think it's called chin-ups, whichever one is palms facing you or palms facing each other, so that we can bring ourselves into this position and really activate that core, that low back, mid back. Okay?
Steph, palms facing you is chin up.
There it is.
Palms away is pull up.
I'm a professional. I know these things. I don't even know what they're called. I just know how to teach them. Okay? Pull up. Any sort of rowing motion. All of those are letting that person, your athlete, gain that range of motion and strength and activate the mid back. Now, when we're doing pull-ups and rows, we want to make sure our core is active. Okay? So similar to how squats, your upper body's not just chilling, the lower body and the core is still strong. What we're doing when we're sweeping is we're putting ourselves in a position where our legs are moving, and our arms are moving, and our trunk has to resist motion. So when we're looking at core training, we have to be able to be in positions where we can move and not lose that stability at the hip, etc. Okay? So on that note, when it comes to push-ups, I'm actually not a stickler on can you do them from the ground. I care more if you can do them from a raised position. This is more applicable in terms of trying to be comfortable in that sleeping position, however it looks for you. Right? We want our athletes to get in that sleeping position, raise their hands. Okay? Don't let them do push-ups from their knees. Okay? Because you're not using your lower body, your core. Okay? And don't let their push-ups look like the worms. Dear God. Raise your hands up. Use the back muscles. Use the chest muscles. And that's going to help you do your sleeping. Okay? I've got an article out there on... I lost my chair. I've got an article out there on my top 5 exercises for sleeping or something, and I dive into push-ups and all that fun stuff. Let me just make sure I didn't miss anything.
And elbows tight to the body, Steph? In push-ups, elbows tight to the body?
Yeah, like, okay. If I threw, my chair is a ball, in case you're wondering why I'm flying. If I do a push-up like a T,
yes.
This is not how I sleep.
Right.
Right? I sleep in here, hopefully. Okay, so we want the body, this is not a yoga push-up. We're not squeezing them in. That's also
right.
not, we're going to get so much friction in there. Like hold your body away, arms away. I want people to look not like a T, not like an I, but like an A. Okay, this position is a very athletic position. If I threw a chest pass and caught it, this is where I would end. So the cues for especially your young kids, tell them to do a chest pass, and that's the position that they want. Okay, and when you're trying to throw a chest pass, it's not just coming from these guys, it's coming from the back muscles. So they want to make sure that they're using that. Okay, using the whole part. So we've got push-ups, chin-ups, incline presses, if you've got someone that has access, because the chest press, if I was lying down, a chest press is straight out, whereas sweeping is a little bit on a 45. So you're pushing forward. You can't push like down here, pushing on a forward. So an incline press is actually a little bit more sport specific. So I prefer push-ups and incline press if you have available weights and the ability to do that. But some sort of chest press is fine too. Now, curling is a unilateral exercise or sport. Okay, one arm is pushing, and one arm is pulling, okay? So we need to have that strength and that ability to have our body offset a little bit. So we need to be able to do single arm rows, single arm chin-ups. I'm just kidding.
You're funny.
single arm chin-ups.
I only know the difference because of CrossFit between a pull-up and a chin-up, and I can't do either, but I'm working towards it.
Perfect. Okay. Okay. So pull. We've got push. We've got two parts of the sweeping: pushing and pulling. So your athletes are going to be doing pushing and pulling motions. Okay. Now, plank for the core. Real simple. If I was to go. Can I angle this at the door? Okay, I want to go open up that door. Okay? My core. I want people to stop thinking of like we're not looking for a six-pack here. We're looking for trunk. Looking for full core stability. And what we're looking at is the core or the trunk is anything but your limbs. Okay? The core needs to be able to be stable because I want to open up this door with my arm. I want to produce movement with my arm. And I don't. Tighten the core, I'm going to fall forward. His full body needs to be tight in order for me to open up the door. That's why another reason why some people have some injuries in their shoulders, they don't have core strength to stabilize the trunk before they go do anything. Okay? So our body is trying to create motion, and motion is actually happening to them. So if you took my hands and pushed my arms over, it's not my arms that are stopping me from moving, it should be my trunk. My lats, remember how big those lats are when they went right down the back? Those are helping me resist motion if someone's trying to push me that way. Okay. Let's see. Planks are great. Things like mountain climbers, not fast. I'm sending a video. I don't like fast mountain climbers. That's cardio. We're not working on that. We're working on hip and core stability and the ability to be in that position with your shoulders over your wrists. Okay, that's going to translate. And then I also mentioned the dry land sweeping. So the dry land sweeping can be used in so many different ways, from just holding the position, okay, figuring out a way to use this. Like if you can't afford to make your own footwork, Delio, an old skateboard on a curve, brings your hands up a little bit. I'm sorry, tall people, I don't know what you should do. Pretty tough, right? But yeah, using the dry land to really own that position is going to help. And it's also there because, again, you're assessing, you're doing movement, and you're noticing where the imbalances are in your body. If you struggle to hold the position, you need core strength, right? If the part that's struggling to hold the position is your shoulders, we're using the itty bitty little stabilizers as opposed to the big muscles, lat, core, etc., chest muscles. Okay?
I have a question, Steph.
Yeah.
So I worked with a team that was training at a high performance hockey center in the preseason, and the high performance hockey center had a slap shot trainer. Mm-hmm. So they would attach the strap to the hockey stick, and then there was resistance when I'm making the motions, even though nobody can see me. But anyway. There was resistance when the player wanted to shoot the puck, right? Yeah. So the team was using it in one direction to train the push, and then they would turn around and do it in the other direction to train the pull. And
see, you have to be creative. That's so good. That's so good.
Yeah, and they were on a Teflon surface with a cover on the brush. And so they didn't. The resistance wasn't there, like the friction. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
my thing is okay. You can't get the same level of friction as ice, but
right.
There's more friction, which is training. Like I leave the summer and I'm like, go away, you friction, like you crazy. Like I want the ice. The ice is so much easier, and the whole purpose of training is can you get so strong that curling is easy. And now you can focus on getting the weight, hitting the broom, the strategy, the ice, all that other stuff. You don't want to be worrying and wasting mental space on am I strong enough? Is my knee going to be okay? Ooh, I don't know if I can throw that hard. My back will hurt. I can't sweep this anymore. My shoulder hurts. Like we don't want to be wasting mental space on that. We want to be focusing on the broom and the weight, right? As Dick Henderson always says, curling's easy. Okay, so that brings me actually almost. I thought you were asking a different question, but I've got my next slide. Ooh, oh, never mind. We're talking about cardio. Did I miss that? Oh, I didn't. Okay, let's talk about cardio, and then the next slide is going to slide into that. Slide in. Oh, God.
Very
okay.
funny.
I do have 5 slides left. Are we running out of time? Are we okay?
We're good. Keep going.
Okay. So what kind of thing can you do to improve your endurance? So I want to point out that there's 2 things here. When someone tells me that they need to work on their stamina and their endurance, is it the muscles that can't handle doing a lot of work, like the actual muscles? Can they not contract 20 times as you go down the ice? Or is it the heart and the lungs giving out? Okay, so cardiovascular system is the heart and the lungs. Muscular endurance is being able to do 15 split squats, okay, or being able to do 20 squats, etc. Okay, then what I want to focus on, and we're going to get to this in a couple other slides, is phasing your off season. And we're also going to talk quickly about ages. So basically, when we're looking at cardio, a lot of people make the mistake and they go to sweeping specific intervals first. But similar to strength, we need to build that strength base so that we need to build that aerobic base, the ability to do work, the aerobic capacity. So that's doing longer intervals a little bit slower so that A, our body, our heart and lungs are efficient, and that lets us recover from the intervals that we're going to do. And B, we're not forgetting about that overall stamina. So when we phase the off season, right now, your athletes should be focusing on building an aerobic base, picking an activity, running, biking, skipping, swimming, walking. That's fine too, as long as you get your heart and lungs up, heart and lungs going. Okay, we want to build that aerobic base. Then we shift into medium intervals. And I say medium intervals because we sweep for about 20 to 30 seconds. We want your athletes to be able to push hard for like a minute, because that means, and then recover for a little bit longer. That means that they can, when we get to the sweeping specific intervals, it's almost easy because they've had to do it with the longer ones, right? I mentioned cardio for recovery. If we have a bigger base than of aerobic capacity, we actually recover. Our ability to recover from intervals comes from having a really good aerobic base. Okay, and then the last piece, which we won't have time to talk about, is being able to master your breathing. I see so many human beings, so not just curlers, who breathe inefficiently, and it's leaving so much potential on the table. So if you need a book to read to really dive into, The Oxygen Advantage by Patrick McEwen, it's fantastic. You want nerd talk, you want scientific evidence-based research, Oxygen Advantage. If you don't want to read it, TED Talk, super good. Okay, so that one talks so much about how to breathe properly so that you're getting the most out of the oxygen you're taking in. Therefore, you can recover from intervals of workouts better. You can recover from your training better, and then you're just going to be an overall healthier human being. So next, let's see. So I will touch a little bit more on cardio, so don't worry. Now, super quick, at the end of the day, general physical activity, fantastic. Okay, if you've got a human or an athlete that's doing nothing and they start to do something, whether it's Zumba or CrossFit or Orange Theory or Instagram live videos, if they go from doing nothing to doing something, they are going to get stronger and healthier, and their performance will improve. Okay, a good trainer or coach is going to be able to provide something for your athletes that they enjoy doing, because I can make a beautiful program, but if they don't do it, it doesn't mean shit. Excuse me. Okay, so at very, very least, if you're struggling with any of your athletes to build buy-in on specific programming, getting them to do something, Wii Fit, I don't care, it doesn't matter, hopscotch, something to help get them better, that's going to at least set the standard of health, and a healthier athlete is going to be a better athlete, have better performance. Okay, so 2 things before we move on from the slide. Number 1, the problem is not that you have to be incredibly strong to have bigger leg drive or more strength and power in your sweeping. Okay, the problem isn't that you have to be really, really, really strong. The problem is that many curlers are relatively weak considering the demands of the curling delivery, especially at the elite level. So we're looking at people that have skill that are just missing out on breaking through because their fitness fails them on Sunday and finals. Okay, that's somebody who doesn't have the mobility to open their hip and exposes themselves to injury, and then they don't get to play and practice as much. They never actually get to their full potential. Okay, so the problem is that you have to be incredibly strong, but we're not strong enough for the sport. That's my opinion. If I'm seeing it left, right, and center, when I take athletes and I make them just a little bit stronger, the performance improves. The specific focus helps, but my God, I swear if they did something, they probably would have had the same results. Okay. And the other thing is I've been focusing on the relationship between improving overall strength, fitness, and wellness. It's the same thing. And the impact it has on improving your performance since high school. Like I've been watching this happen with myself, my teammates, and the athletes that I work with. What I've noticed is with any improvement in strength, an increase in leg drive is observed, regardless of type of strength training program conducted. So when I first started training lifting weights, I started bodybuilding because that's all the people I knew did. Bodybuilding would be like leg, back, thigh, chest, shoulders, tri, so it's muscle specific versus motion specific. Okay, just because I got stronger and I gained a little muscle, it helped me on the ice. Okay, so at the very, very least, yes, I tout all these things, you have to be motion specific phase you're training, etc. But you need to do something at the very, very least, and I'm happy. But specific goals require specific training adaptation. So that's why all you are here. Okay, every time I work with an athlete, they all have a goal. There's something in their performance gap that they need to take advantage of the off season to improve. Okay, and there's lots of little things that you can do to minimize. I'm going to add this in actually later because I'm running out of time. Okay, switching to LTAD, long-term athlete development for curling, identifies optimal training, competition, and recovery principles and practices for our athletes through the sequential stages from childhood through to adulthood. So this is very important. I'm going to link it in the presentation. Understanding where your athlete is on the development scale is super important, so that you're not focusing on things without building a solid foundation first. Okay. Basically, when you're starting with an athlete, okay, we're looking at things like their physical age, and that's going to put them in the LTAD. Their curling age. Right? How long have they been curling for? Okay? And their training age. How long have they been training for? So when you're creating a program for something, we need to look at all three of those things. How old are they actually? Okay? If I could have a 40-year-old curling athlete who is healthier than a 14-year-old curling athlete. Okay, that 40-year-old curling athlete, I could probably go right through a three-phase program, right? Whereas that 14-year-old, yeah, they should probably have a phase-focused program, but their physical literacy sucks, so we need to build that up first. Okay? So when I'm looking at the LTAD, what I like to focus on is you take into account their physical age, their curling age, and their training age. Okay? And then we want to start with movement and fun. So that's that athletic literacy. Okay? Letting them do something. You got to start with something. Then we start to add in more structure and really focus on the mental training side of things. Then they get to an age and a competitive level there where we need to be position specific. Because let's face it, young athletes need to be overall healthy and strong with fitness, because what the position they're playing when they're 12 might not be the position they're playing when they're 30 or 20, right? Those skips when they're 12 might end up, like look at Einerson's team, like those skips that became front end players, right? We need to be overall healthy. So then we're at position specific, and then we can look at that high performance, really specific stuff. So very general ability to move and have a good cardio and strength base first, and then focus on the high performance stuff. So I just don't want people jumping the gun. And the LTAD does, if you Google curling long-term athlete development, I think it's on the Curling Canada website, it actually does have specific guidance for specific ages. So I think like 13-year-old girls should have the best opportunity to improve their long jump scores. So you want to make sure you're focusing on that. Like things like that, there's different pieces in there. When I look at
curling.ca has the very detailed long-term athlete development model.
Yeah, I'm going to link that into the PowerPoint as well.
Perfect.
Well, so we have that because it's important. I just didn't want to focus. A lot of people ask about different ages, but what I'm hoping I'm giving you is, okay, let's look at what you have to do as a curler. Let's look at the person that I have in front of me. What can they do and what can't they do? And then we fill in the gap versus, oh, you're 12 years old. You should be able to do X, Y, Z. And they could be light years ahead or light years behind, right? When you look at the human in front of you. So this is important. I just don't want to, miss that. Okay, and then that brings us to standardized testing. What kind of things should you test? Basically, let's look at the long game. We're setting up for the off season, and we have a goal, an outcome goal, this time next year. Okay, your team wants to make provincials, win provincials, etc., win a league, what have you. Okay, get on a team. They have this outcome goal. Then we look at the performance goals. Oh no, their balance, their line of delivery, their weight control, their sweeping. We need to work on those pieces. The process is in there. How do we build the strength and mobility that they need and the stamina to achieve those performance goals so that they can get their outcome goal? So what I'm getting at is when we're reverse engineering from your goals. Okay, you're looking at where I am today, which is why everyone's asking me about testing. They want baseline. We're looking at where we want to be come December. Pick a date, right? SMART goals that have a timeline. Okay, and then what's the gap that we need to fill? And what I'm trying to point out here is that make sure you're testing everything for a reason. So I'm not giving you a specific test here today. You get to decide. Anybody that messaged me asking about testing had an idea of what they should test, and I think they were fantastic. Okay, essentially we know to have a strong curler, we need to have some upper body strength, pushing and pulling. We need to have some lower body strength, pushing and pulling, single leg activities. Okay, we've got some lower body power. Can they do a long jump? Hint, hint. Can they stick the landing? Can they stick the landing with one leg? Okay, core strength. Okay, we talked about the trunk. We need to be able to hold that high plank, but then can we also resist motion? So we need to have something that we want to test in there. And then, of course, overall movement efficiency. So the things that I'm looking at are what are we trying to adapt in our training? So we want to test something. That's going to give us we make the goal. What we're testing is to make sure the program's working. Right? So when we're testing, if I test my plank because I want more core stability, I need to make sure my program improves core stability to see an increase in my plank. Okay? And that doesn't necessarily mean, so if you notice in school and in life, you don't actually test, you don't actually practice the test. The test is an assessment of, did you do everything right in your class? Right? So we're trying to assess movement and fill in those gaps. I lied. I do have a couple exercises here that you could test if you wanted to. I know the OCC does have standardized testing. I don't know if they're sending that out. Some things that I look at, can your athlete do an overhead squat? Can your athlete hold a plank? Can your athlete do isometric balance holds, so as their hip flexors and their hamstrings strong? Can they do a push-up from the ground? Okay, and then how's their single leg power and control? That's that long jump. Okay, I'm looking at what are the things that they need to be able to do, and I'm testing for that. So if you don't have a lot of access to equipment, push-ups, we talked about a lot of things that they need to be able to do, push-ups, pull-ups, long jumps, and then maybe like a 1 mile run test or something, right? We need things that they need to measure that are going to make them better. Okay, so let's take a quick look at a program and in their key features. One of the questions that was asked was how to find a really good trainer. At the end of the day, certifications and regulations are fantastic, but they're not the be-all, end-all. I know plenty of people with a list of letters by their name, but they can't communicate with human beings, so they don't get the results that you want, right? And vice versa. I know someone would get just your like weekend good life certification that you can get online. Maybe, I don't remember. And like they're a fantastic coach. They understand the body. So what you're looking for is does this trainer or this coach understand the demands of the sport? Are they able to look at the athletes in front of them and assess them for the things that need to be able to do well with the demands of the sport? So take that list with you if you have a trainer. Okay, a good trainer is going to take advice from something like this. Like you've got the recording, send it to the trainer. They should be wanting to soak this up. I mean, that's my opinion, but you want to have that growth-minded trainer, not someone who's stuck, right? And then the last piece is that you want your trainer to be focusing on movement and motions and not giving your athletes legs back by, chest, shoulders, try. Okay? We don't do tricep day. We don't do calf day. We do motions, right? Can they do a hinge? Can they do an upper body pull? Can they do an upper body push? Because, I mean, the individual muscles are valid if you've got the time to do biceps curls, triceps, hamstrings, etc. But the motions are going to give you that performance improvement. Okay, I hope that makes sense. That's what I'm looking for in a trainer. right? You don't want trainer who got someone to be a bodybuilder. You want trainer that helps improve performance. Okay, fun fact, you focus on performance. Let's say you're working with an older adult and they want to, not necessarily older adult, anyways, they want to lose weight as well. When you focus on performance, it takes the stress off of the scale and how the clothes fit. And when you focus really well and get those wins in performance, your body naturally will lose weight and gain muscle. Okay, so that's just my focus. I like to look at performance because that's the main piece here. Yes, weight loss could help improve performance, but we're focusing on performance so that we can see the little wins every single day. Now, when we're looking at a program, the program that is available after this, the DIY program, we want to make sure we're setting goals. Okay, where do you want to be? We're not doing this for shits and giggles here. Where do you want to be? And then do a performance gap analysis or some sort of physical assessment to figure out where you are now. A lot of the times I can just ask an athlete, what do you struggle with on the ice? And they're like, balance, flexibility, power, upper body control, comfort, etc. Right? Like they know what their performance gaps are already. And you can probably look at them and see and just write it down. So yes, use like push-up tests and plank tests and squat tests as a measurable because those are super valid and important. But you can always just look at someone and if their performance improves, the program works. Create a plan. So we've got point A, which is here, point B, which is where you want to be, and then create the plan in the middle and establish that timeline. Okay, what's next? Okay, next slide, which is the last one. So key phases of a generalized curling off-season training program. Okay, so again, consider LTAD, the long-term athlete development, the route that people need to be, consider the training age, consider their curling age, consider their physical age. And then look at the individual in front of you and create that generalized curling program. Okay, so what I've done after all of that, the DIY program is for my, like, in my head, average curler. I'm looking at the demands of the sport and the things that I see people struggle with, and I've created this 3-phase program. Okay, so the problem I see is that people skip the gen prep and strength stages, and they go straight to the power. They go straight to the high intervals. They don't build that base of strength and fitness and endurance before they do that. We have 4 months until September. Okay, take advantage of that time to really build a solid base. So
that's a really good point because we did have a question about avoiding injury and doing harm. And so by skipping over that general prep and the strength building phase and skipping right into power, that's when you're possibly risking injury. Is that correct?
100%, 100%. If you just take yourself from now, like think of your typical curler. They open up their let's say their right-handed curler, sorry lefties. Their left hip opens, their ankle, the area at the ankle gets elongated. Okay, their right glute is more likely to be activated. They're twisted. Their body's imbalanced. Maybe you sweep on one side or always with one arm down. That upper shoulder and mid-back and that chest muscle are going to be imbalanced. So unless you take the time to really figure out those, like it'll never be equal. No human body is ever perfectly balanced. But if we can take the time in the gen prep stage to kind of even out the scales, right, to help prevent injury, or if not, you're just continuing to compensate with injuries. But the other piece of that is that you pointed out is if someone's setting themselves up for injury, they're not moving properly when they're imbalanced like that. So when they go to do strength, they've got an imbalance in strength, and when they go to do power, they've got an imbalance in power, right? And there's nothing, that's what I'm saying, like some people will message me and be like, I have 6 weeks until the curling season, make me stronger. We can get you stronger just by doing some exercise and some power, but I find why not take 1.5 months to work on the general movement. Master the positions, own the positions, be comfortable doing a squat, a push-up, and a deadlift, okay, etc. Increase your aerobic capacity so that you have the time to work on and really gain some strength, okay? And then you have that strength and that ability to do intervals, and you can really focus it on the sweeping specific. And again, if you're struggling with your sweeping and you go straight to sweeping position and you're practicing your sweeping intervals, if you missed out on all that strength you could have gained. If you go straight to power, you missed out on all that strength you could have gained. You're really just putting things in the tank. I think of general prep as the foundation of your house. I'm not an architect. I don't know why I use this as an analogy. General preparation is the foundation of your house. It's your basement. It's the wall. It's the posts that go up. Okay. The strength is the walls and the roof. Okay. So you're not going to put your roof on until you have a foundation. It's not going to happen. Okay. And then the power is like all the accoutrements in your house. Okay, it's the wallpaper, it's the fancy windows and the carpets, and I definitely have not owned my own house. I don't know how to decorate plants, what have you. Okay, you're not going to be able to hang up a chandelier if you don't have a roof and you don't have a foundation, right? I'm like literally imaging a chandelier just floating in space right now. Okay. So I've got recommendations here, 4 to 8 weeks spent in general prep, 4 to 8 weeks spent strength building, 4 to 8 weeks with the power and generation. So you get to decide. I don't have a note in here, but making sure that you're deloading. So deloading is a fancy strength term for reloading. If I have a water gun fight, I got to take a break, reload my gun, and then shoot. What's the analogy where the guy he has to chop down a tree and his friend takes 4 hours because he never stops, and the other guy takes 2 because he stops and sharpens his axe? Same idea. Okay, we need to rest. That was a real good analogy. I'm a genius.
That is awesome. Never heard that one before, so it's excellent.
Yeah. No, I didn't make that up. But one of the mistakes I've made is I did a couple of summers where I just worked really hard. I don't know how many months it was, 3 months. Guess what? I got hurt, right? So I lost out on that potential to do really well. I got hurt with a month left, okay, and I couldn't utilize. If I'm hurt, I can't practice and play as much, and therefore my performance drops. So the next summer, I'm like, I don't want to get hurt, so I'm running on medium. I'm like, just like coast along a medium. But I never actually fully stress the system. What we're doing when we're training is we're stressing the system, the muscles, the energy systems, the brain, etc. And then we give it time to recover and regenerate. We don't get stronger while we're lifting and working out. We get stronger when we're resting. Okay, and that's super important. So when I work with a program, I've got, maybe, let's say you did 8 weeks of gen prep, you would do 4 weeks, and then you would take a week of deload. And then you do 4 weeks, and you take a week of a deload. Okay, same thing with strength, same thing with power. So you can go hard for 3 to 4 weeks, and then go easy for a week and let the body recover. It also lets people work in vacations, which we will have this summer, I promise. I hope. Oh my God. Okay, and I link again the dryland sleeping article. So, so what's next? The next slide. So, what's next? Assess where you are, where you want to be, and then determine what you need to do to achieve your goals in between. Okay? This is my shameless pitch. This team here, Team Lung / Team Purdy, they've trained with me for 3 years. The last 4 years, they won provincial, and then they didn't train with me and they lost provincial. And then they trained with me, and guess what happened? They won provincial. Awesome. Chicken or the egg? No, so what I find is the athletes that come to me or seek out some sort of focused training, they have something special inside of them. It's already there. We're just using the fitness to help unlock it and make it attainable. Right? So now you all, lovely humans, are now armed with the knowledge, the why, the what, and the how. But it's on you now to have to do the work. So that's typically, we go back to that very first slide, it's the effort that you put in, right? And a lot of it is the planning ahead and looking at what you've got. So what I do is I've got a DIY program template. So it's a 3-phase, and I'm sorry, but it's extra money if you want the specific template. But I put it together so that teams can take it. Coaches can take it. They have the understanding of what goes into the program. It's a 3-phase program that could be administered in 3 to 6 months, okay, depending on how long you use those. Can I go left? Okay, it's this. Okay, it's the gen prep, the strength, and the power. It could be done over 3 to 6 months, okay? And I think I've got 5 workouts in each phase. Okay, and we've got upper body, lower body, core, hips, cardio, recovery, stretching, warm up, all the things that you and your athletes need in the program. And I've put it together like a template so that you can look at it and go, I need this piece, I need this piece, and I'm going to put those pieces together. One thing that I didn't mention is that let's say your athletes play another sport. So let's say this isn't COVID year, and then you're listening to this a year later. If your athletes play soccer, or even if they do a different type of training like Orange Theory or CrossFit, they can still use the warm-ups and the cool-downs to their advantage. If their big issue is hip stability, they just need to add hip stability stuff into their warm-ups. Okay? Or maybe one day a week where they focus on hip stability. If they're a golfer and they're not getting a chance to get in the gym as much to work on their aerobic capacity and their interval, they just have to do an extra small workout there. So the key is to be able to take this program and kind of pull the pieces out, or keep it the exact same, the same way you need it. It's a very general program. I know I have a U21, I guess he's an adult now, guy that took it, and he was like, I need to upgrade all of this. So what I've done is if you purchase the template, you can use a consult call with me, and we can sit down and talk about you and your athletes and how to specifically adapt it to them. So I'm trying to get it to the point so that the coaches don't have to hire. Right now, money's tight for a lot of people, so I don't want people to have to hire someone, but I can consult and provide some help and focus there. I also do, this is coming out later in the summer, some mini programs. I'm going to focus specifically on hip mobility, cardio, and I forget what the other one was, probably just general strength. It had a fancy name, I don't remember it. And then, of course, I have if you follow me on Instagram, I have my EP VIP. So those are Empowered Performance VIP athletes, and those are the ones that I'm talking to every day. So they have the accountability and the coaching from me, and I work with them as individuals or as a team. So I have worked with teams, like obviously this Team Lung here, with a very one-on-one focus. So there's different things for everybody. And I am working on an ambassadorship with a couple of teams so that they can showcase the stuff that they're learning and the stuff that they're doing. Very last thing before I get to questions and answers. First of all, thank you for sitting through this. I thought I was going to do it in an hour. I thought I got
perfect.
Empoweredperformance.ca. There's a link to sign up for my newsletter. And my newsletter is all things curling, fitness, and mindset. Okay, and that comes out once a month. I don't spam you. The first Friday of every month. So if you want on that for May, that's this Friday. That's the first Friday of the month. And if you're like, oh, I missed all the other ones, send me a nice person. If you do push-ups for me, I'll send you anything. And now let's get to the question and answer. How do
I'm going to unmute everybody. Before I do, I just want to say that when I send the recording and your slides out, Steph, I will send it. I will CC you on the email. Everybody else is blind copied, so everybody will have your email address and can contact you to learn more about the programs that you have.
So are you saying?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Steph. Sorry.
You don't want to be my secretary? You don't want to take the emails and forward them on to me?
No. I mean, I do.
No, I know. Yeah. Yeah, you can email me directly. It's simple. Steph@empoweredperformance.ca. You can hunt me down on Instagram and Facebook and all that shit. I don't look at Facebook or Twitter as much as Instagram, so I apologize. Okay, where are we at? Was there a bunch of questions asked, or should I just...
Actually, there weren't. The questions that were asked have been answered. I've confirmed that. If anybody the mics are open right now, so if anybody has a question or a comment, fire away. Hearing cricket. Give people a chance to unmute themselves. Okay. No, we got some thank yous. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Thanks, Stephanie. So, this was there a question?
Yeah, what's YTT gap analysis?
Yeah, you answered it.
Okay, cool. But what does that stand for? I'm just curious.
Yearly training plan.
Oh, yeah. So FMS is interesting. It's there's a lot of evidence supporting it, but it's when you look at the transfer to sport. It can expose a lot of gaps. It's definitely just a tool, right? Like it's a tool that a lot of people can use. I actually do use some. Hello, Perry. I do use some FMS testing, but I definitely don't sit there and stress about it because again, it's motions, right? It's movements.
Yeah.
Cool. Do you have any questions, Andrea?
I don't. You answered them during the presentation. This was all. I do have one question.
Yeah.
So this felt like this was a really good start, like for preseason, right?
Yeah.
Would you be willing to come back possibly and do one for in-season maintenance?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah,
that is great. Oh, we do have a question.
I know, I see. Okay.
What's your best advice for surviving 3-game days?
The interesting thing about curling is that it's like you need to have the ability to do work, right? Like the problem is, I pointed this out in my last webinar, that curlers used to be like farmers. They used to be lifting things, hucking hay, you know, all that. They were moving. We moved so much more as a society, and now we sit at our desk and then we go curl for 2 hours. So when you're looking at what you need to be able to do for a 3-game day, you need to be able to play 3 games, which means your body has to be able to handle that. So to practice that, number one is getting in those situations, unfortunately. Being able, like, all the training in the world is very hard to, unless you actually do it, to gain that ability to do a 3-game game day, because it does tax the mind and the body. But that's where that aerobic capacity comes in. That's where some athletes would benefit from like 2. I'm talking like high-end athletes. This is not general. 2-a-days, right? My curling team. I realized that if I played 3 games in a row, my legs were very tired and it affected my feel. So what I would start to do before practices was I would actually go and do a leg workout, a light leg workout, and then I would go to the practice ice. Right? So I was able to tax my legs so I could feel that fatigue, so I could work on how do I get that feel again in the legs. It's a convoluted question. It really depends on the person, basically. But you need to be able to, but a lot of the time, most teams, hopefully, like this happened to me one year, we made a quarterfinal, and then the next weekend we qualified, we made a semi, and then the next weekend we made a final. Right? You have to kind of, you're progressively overloading the system. So, I mean, sometimes what I used to do, what I've done with my teams in the past is if we don't qualify, Sundays are for curling. So we are committing as a team to do some sort of exercise on Sunday. Because that time that we do qualify, we want to know what it's like to curl Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So if we couldn't get on the ice, we knew that, let's say we didn't qualify, we were going home and we were doing a workout. So there's things we can do to kind of up that. Okay, what standards? The U18 women's team.
I'm going to try to get the OCC standards and share them with everybody.
Yeah. Can you share them with me? I feel like I get all the data and then
yeah, absolutely. I'll see what I can get. If I can't get them from OCC, I'll talk to Kyle Turcotte.
I can tell you off the top of my head, a U18 woman, they should be able to do, if they want to compete nationally, they need to be able to do push-ups from the ground properly, 10 push-ups. They need to be able to do 2 pull-ups at least, chin-ups, sorry. They need to be able to do a long jump and stick the landing on one leg. Okay, that's stability. Core power. The athletes that I see struggle with core have a problem if they're in a plank and they lift one leg, they have that instability in the hip. Okay, so building up that stability in the core and the side plank. I mean, it's one thing to have the goal to compete nationally, but if my athlete is where they are today and they want to get better, they need to improve no matter what, right? So I think that, yeah, the standard's great, but are you really going to tell a U18 woman that she's not up to national standard? She's likely going to quit curling. It's a very vulnerable age. I don't like I actually don't use tests anymore. I assess so I can look for opportunities to improve. That's my personal opinion. How much sleep should a U18 girls team be getting daily in a season? That is an interesting, very specific question. Go on to the Canadian, so CSET.ca. So there you will find the new Canada's Food Guide and the physical activity and sedentary guidelines for all humans. So it breaks it down. You know what? I'm just going to make a note and I'll add it in there. Okay? I don't remember what the note is, but every human being is different. 18 years old is a very interesting age because their body clock keeps them up later. I would work on, instead of telling your U18 girls team that they need more sleep, I would work on helping them improve their ability to relax, right? Help them improve their pre-sleep routine so that they get higher quality sleep. Typically that means turning off the phone an hour before bed.
I was going to say, yeah.
Typically,
turn off the technology.
Yeah, any human, less alcohol before bed, less food before bed. Like looking at improving the quality of your sleep is actually more important than the number of hours. Screens out of the bedrooms. Yeah. I mean, my thing is these glasses are not prescription. They're blue light. They are a game changer. Huge game changer. Anybody that's on their screen a lot. And it's really hard to tell anyone, even myself, not to be on a screen. Like I love reading. Yeah, that's a good question. Huh. I hope that I get to work with a team that their biggest problem is they're not getting enough sleep. You need more sleep. I find youth, this is the weird, there's a weird kind of like, there's like a weird relationship, okay? If I can't sleep, then I look at my phone, I have more screen time. Okay, which is going to make it harder for me to sleep, like it back and forth. But if I can't sleep, I'm tired the next day, okay, and then I'm likely not going to want to work out. So now I didn't expend any energy. So now I didn't get any, my body fluids moving, my muscles moving, etc. And then I can't sleep again. And then I'm tired because I didn't sleep and then I don't want to work out. So an interesting way to break that cycle is actually adding more exercise into your day. Okay.
Because then you're tired.
Because then you're tired. Yeah, it's a weird. When people look at me and I tell them that exercise and physical activity is going to give them more energy, they don't understand until it happens. You have to push through that fatigue to do the exercise so that you're actually tired enough to fall asleep. You get a good night's sleep, and then you have the energy the next day. Right? I noticed it with myself. Like if I'm tired, and it's more, and then the same thing with food. You're tired, so your brain's main fuel is carbohydrates, C6H12O2, sugar. So you eat more sugar. Sugar keeps you up at night. This is never negative. So at the end of the day, that's why I'm a huge advocate for physical activity. It doesn't have to be exercise. You just have to move. Go for a walk, dance, right? Follow an Instagram Live. Any other questions? So that we can all enjoy our beautiful. Did anybody else see that beautiful sunset? I know we're not in the same parts of the world, but.
No, our sun is still up. We still have blue sky. So.
Oh, I hope it was gorgeous. It was gorgeous.
Well, thank you so much, Steph. Your presentations are always energizing and enthusiastic, and I think that enthusiasm translates to everybody else. So thank you so much for doing this, and we will be in touch. As with everything, when the recording comes out, people, please, this is for your use with your team. This is not to be shared for any other reason. So please, if there's any part of it that you wish to use, you need to contact Stephanie first before you do that. But thank you so much, Steph. It was awesome.